Now, it's a sitcom set in a British seaside hotel that only ran for 12 episodes, and yet Fawlty Towers is famous, of course, throughout the world.
Now, the cast has got together again to promote a new TV programme in which they talk about how the characters came about.
Manuel was based simply on one idea, which was that in London in the 70s, if you went to a restaurant, you were very, very lucky indeed to get what you ordered. And the reason was that the people who owned restaurants had discovered that by employing people who spoke no known language, they could save a lot of money.
Well, it has, of course, become one of Britain's best-loved comedies. Initially, though, the BBC rejected the script, with one executive saying it was a collection of clichés and stock characters, which I can't see being anything but a disaster.
Well, before we discuss the key to its eventual success, let's have a quick look at one of the episodes.
I'm so sorry with the rubbish we get in here. Now, if you'd be so very kind as to fill that form out, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton. Ah, yes. Now, we put you in room 12, which has a charming panoramic view overlooking the lawn.
What a driver. Everything on the wrong side of the road, the weather. What do you get for living in a climate like this? Green stamps, it's terrible.
Sorry about this.
Took 5 hours from London. Couldn't find the freeway. Had to take a little back street called the M5.
Well, I'm sorry if it wasn't wide enough for you. A lot of the English cars have steering wheels.
They do they? You wouldn't think there was room for them inside.
See what I mean?
What?
Rubbish.
May I introduce my husband?
Oh, the rubbish we get in here. Look at that.
We're joined by modern-day sitcom writer Ariane, Sherine and Toby Earle from TV Easy magazine. Morning to you both. Yeah. I mean, many years on, we still laugh. What is it? What was key, do you think, to it being so funny, for starters?
I think it has wonderful characters which are beautifully drawn and played. I think it also has the advantage of having writers who are actors, so they can write dialogue that sounds very natural, because a lot of writers write stilted dialogue. We don't mean to, but because we're not actors, often we find that in a read-through, it just doesn't work. Whereas I imagine John Cleese and Connie Booth were able to read the scripts along as they were writing them. Also, it's got some fantastic gags. Often they have a very slow build-up, but the payoff is wonderful. So
yes, Toby. Now that episode, even from that clip, that's the Waldorf salad.
Yes, right,
and that's extraordinary, isn't it? Even I know it's got a name. The one episode has a name.
Exactly, and Basil the rat, and then of course the Germans, and you know each episode has these kind of key comedy moments that were iconic, really iconic. I mean, exactly what you were saying there about the characterisation, the writing are both fantastic. Also, I think on top of that, not to get too spiritual, but it was also like, this amazing cosmic sort of conflation of every single tiny aspect of the show just clicking neatly into place, and that so rarely happens, as probably you'd say as well when you're trying to write. I mean, actually trying to write and capture something like that, it's like trying to capture a supernova with a net. It just rarely, and if ever, happens.
OK, so we mentioned the Waldorf salad. I think we have the clip. Let's have a little look.
A drink before your meal?
A scotch and water and a screwdriver, please.
And for you, madam?
The screwdriver's for me.
I see. Would you like it now or after your meal?
Oh, now, please.
There's nothing I can put right?
What?
Absolutely. So it's one scotch and a screwdriver.
I think I'll join you. Make that 2 screwdrivers, would you?
You'd like a screwdriver as well?
Got it.
Fine. So it's 1 scotch and you each need a screwdriver.
No. Forget the scotch, 2 screwdrivers.
I understand, and you'll leave the drinks.
What?
Nothing to drink?
What do you mean, nothing to drink?
Well, you can't drink your screwdrivers, can you?
What else would you suggest that we do with it?
Vodka and orange juice.
Ah, certainly, madam.
Make that 2 and forget about the screwdrivers.
You sure?
You can manage without them.
As you wish.
See, I wonder, Ariane, when you watch that, if you were to come up with a kind of format like that, with some of the... I mean, people say they're slightly cliched characters, but they're real caricatures. Yeah. The sort of American who's like that, and the waiter who is that certain style as well. Could you get away with it? I mean, it's on PC now, isn't it?
I don't think I could get away with it. I think that nowadays, sitcom writers often don't focus on the characters, they focus on the gags. So they have this layer of gags that they superimpose upon quite weak characters, and they've forgotten that the gags need to come from the characters to feel real and for us to empathise with them. In Fawlty Towers, if you see, the gags always drive the plot along, and if Basil has a line, it's perfectly in tune with his character. Which isn't always the case.
Do you think we look back in some ways with it and actually give it more credit than it's due, or is it worth all this credit it gets?
I think it is worth all the credit it rightly receives. I mean, in the documentary tonight, they will actually say about how the critics panned it at first, and shows what they know, right? But it's the setup as well. It's the genius setup, because not only obviously the characterisation is superb, but it's something everyone could relate to in the time. You know, going to an English seaside resort, you meet people like that. The henpecked husband, probably the most used character trope in comic history, from Aristophanes to the present day. I mean, but everything was completely recognisable. The mad old major, you know, and all these characters people have met. And certainly when people were holidaying more within the UK, you know, you encountered these folk, and the fact that he was based on a real person as well just even adds to the frisson.
It's a curious thing, isn't it, Ariane, that some of the sitcoms or these comedies that are most cherished now, Dad's Army I'm thinking of as well, and Fawlty Towers have one thing in common, which there were hardly any of them made. Very, very few.
Yeah.
Does that add to the kind of mystique of how wonderful they were? And if there's lots of something, does it necessarily mean people are kind of think it's less significant somehow?
I think that's very true, and I'm very glad that they didn't go on and do a reunion, as they said that they're too old, they're too tired. And I think that it can never live up to its original, as you say, its mystique, and it's got this nostalgia factor, which I think would be compromised if they did do that. Ricky Gervais also made only 2 series of The Office, 2 series of Extras, as well as the Christmas special, because he felt that it was good to cut shows at their peak, and I think he's right.
OK, thank you very much. I know you're back later, but thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.